Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Turn Your Shipping into a Competitive Advantage. My name is Amy Baker, and I'm a Product Marketing Manager at Neopost Shipping. And we are excited to have participants both from the United Kingdom and the United States joining us today as a part of the launch of our ProShip shipping solution into the United Kingdom. A couple of housekeeping notes before we start. Today's session will be recorded, and everyone who registered for the event will receive a link to the recording. In that same email as the recording, you'll also be asked to fill out a short survey so we can learn from you what other topics may be of interest for future events. And that same survey will also automatically launch when you leave the meeting today, giving you a chance to respond straight away. And we do appreciate any feedback you have on future sessions. Since we are expecting a significant group today from both sides of the pond, we will keep your lines on mute. However, I do want to encourage you to ask any questions you may have using the chat window in the GoToWebinar console. And we will answer all those questions at the end of the session. I am really happy today to introduce today's speaker, Justin Kramer. Justin is a Global Project Management Director and a co-founder of ProShip in the United States, which is a part of the Neopost company. And he has 18 years of solid shipping industry experience and has been a part of 300 software solutions for customers on 4 continents. And if you start adding that up, he's been a part of solutions that execute over 10 million packages being shipped per day by ProShip, with the largest solution exceeding 1.1 million packages per day. We are going to tap into Justin's expertise today to give a quick overview of Neopost Shipping. And then he's going to share some shipping scenarios and how you can find the best time in your shipping process to create your shipping documentation for greater efficiency. He will then explore different rate shopping options that you can do depending on when you are creating your shipping documentation. And then he'll close with some ideas on what you should consider when choosing a shipping software that includes 2 real-life examples that show how shipping software can become a competitive advantage for their organizations. And we will then close with the questions that have come through the chat window. So with that, I will pass the presentation over to Justin.
Thank you, Amy. All right. So as we go through, I again encourage everybody, just like Amy did, go ahead and post your questions in the chat window. We will try to get to them as we go along. We will definitely stop a session at the end in order to do those. But let me go ahead and just start moving into it and first talk about, well, who is Neopost? Who is ProShip? Well, Neopost, we have a large cross-section of customers, over 800,000 customers across 29 countries. We're about 1.1 billion euros in revenue, and I have over 6,000 employees to service our customers. And we have a pretty stable growth of 1.3% year over year. Okay. Now, Neopost focuses on the entire process, from cart to customer. But today, we're going to be focusing on what ProShip focuses on, which is basically just the warehouse portions themselves. And we're specifically going to be focusing on pick, pack, and labeling processes. Now, when we think about these processes, there's a core thing that just about every warehouse manager can think of, which is basically you have orders, you wave them down to a process, they get picked, we pack them, eventually they get labeled, and of course we pass them over to the carrier to go ahead and start delivering them to our customer. But if we really want to break that down further, we can look at ways to produce documents at the beginning of line or front of line shipping. So with that, as we produce our documents to go and pick items in the warehouse, we can produce shipping documents at the same time. Okay, and we'll talk more about when that is a viable solution. What this means is that as soon as the warehouse person picks that item, they can immediately place the label on that and pass it directly to the carrier trailer. No additional handling required. Okay. Now, what we often see and where there is also great value is in end-of-line shipping. Now, in this case, we pick our items without shipping documents, we pack them appropriately, and then at end of line, right before we put it on the carrier trailer or place it in the carrier pickup area, we go ahead and label those items. Finally, we pass them over to the appropriate carrier trailer, and off they go. So as we think about the specifics of these two, front of line and end of line processing, That's what we're going to get into for the next few minutes. Okay. So first, what is case picking? Case picking is basically where you're gathering full cartons of boxes of products. Now, in North America, there's things called a box maker certificate. A lot of items ship with a box maker certificate on them, meaning you can apply a label directly to them. The European Federation of Corrugated Cardboard Manufacturers also has some certifications that they can do for these boxes, but you usually know when you pick up an item whether or not the packaging that is in is capable of having a label placed on it and being put directly into a carrier stream. Okay. Now, one of the most recognizable ones I think we would all notice is Dyson boxes. So Dyson vacuums are always in a box maker certified, European Federation Corrugated Box Manufacturer certified box that can have a label placed immediately on it. You may want to H-tape it a little bit or something of that nature, but this is something where when you're out in that warehouse, if you were to pull one of those off the shelf and it's the only item that the customer is ordering, you could immediately apply a carrier label to it and move it into the carrier area. Piece picking. This is probably what we're most used to. With piece picking, we're actually going out and picking multiple different items. Often items are in like the box we see that this lady has. Those boxes are not ready to be shipped. They must be placed within a corrugate container, which is certified or is more likely to protect the goods while they're being shipped. Now, with piece picking, we also have quality control concerns, many other things that we want to ensure that presentation, things of that nature are all dealt with prior to us closing up that box and applying the appropriate carrier documents. So we've talked a little bit about the process. We've talked a little bit about the vocabulary of beginning of line, end of line, case picks, piece picks. Let's go in a little bit more into the details themselves. Okay, so with them, we have front of line, end of line. When can we use them? Well, with front of line, batch shipping is a great way to do this. The idea is that we can have a lot of transactions occur at the same time. We're not waiting for individual labels. They can all be pushed out onto a printer and gathered as necessary. Now, the problem with front of line shipping is that we're going to leverage estimated data. We're going to leverage the data that your system says the weights and dimensions are for it, okay? Because this process, which is usually batch, which means there's no human interaction, does not have the ability to get data from another person or from additional hardware, okay? In most cases. There are some exceptions, and we can talk about those in another webinar. But if we think about it, when we're producing those labels, whether it's Royal Mail, UPS, FedEx, DHL, TNT, we only have the information that is within the host system, whether that's an ERP, a WMS, or any other system that might contain material master information. Whereas with end-of-line shipping, okay, we are handling every single piece, but we do now have the option to integrate a scale to a scale or even a dimensionalizer. And of course, we have the ability for our people in the warehouse to actually interact with the software and make corrections if they realize what we pulled from the systems is incorrect. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So we'd like to stop for a second here. Let's find out from our audience. How many of you are using front of line methods and how many of you are using end of line methods? And please note, many of our customers are using both. All right, so the first poll is up. This one, we're asking for front of line methods. Again, this means that you are producing your shipping documents before you actually touch the items, before you've actually pulled that inventory. And again, this often works really well with your case picks. All right, we'll give this just a minute. Okay, and our next question, and here's our results. It looks like 36% of you are not using this at all, and 21% of you are using it extensively, okay? So that's great. We do see that a good mix is often required or is often necessary. So let's move on. Let's ask for the people who are doing end-of-line shipping. Okay, again, this is where we've put everything in the boxes already. The box may be sealed by the time it gets to this station, or we may be sealing it at that station. but it's a person or maybe a conveyor system actually applying that label right before that box goes to the carrier. Okay, and as I expected, a large majority of attendees are actually doing end-of-line shipping. Okay, and so the thing we want to impress upon people is the fact that you can do both. Okay, and it depends upon how much volume is going through your warehouse, as to whether or not it's going to be more efficient at a given time. It may be something you only use at certain times of the year during peak seasons and things of that nature. But let's go ahead and let's actually let's look at some of the pros and cons. Okay, so the pros for front of line, obviously, it's more efficient if we're just doing case picks. We don't have to touch the box very often, and we don't really have to train our operator. Obviously, if the picker finds there's a problem, all they can really do is return that document back to their manager, and the manager can pass it upstream or solve the problem for them. And whether it's a damaged good, whether there's not enough product in the warehouse, whatever the case may be, it's pretty straightforward, and it's pretty easy to bring a picker up to speed on how to use the process. However, again, we've talked a little bit about the fact that the weight comes from a host system, and it may be inaccurate. The data is only as good as what you have in your systems. All right. There's only so much business logic we can do, and as we get into the business logic section of this demo and talk about rate shopping, you'll start to see why business logic can be limited. Okay. And of course, we have the fact that we have a physical document that's now been produced that might get lost. Okay. And the other thing that I want to really talk about here is the fact that we're not taking advantage of the fact that we can have a highly trained person doing this. And there's not really in a front of line process, there's a lot less capability for that individual to input their professional knowledge as part of the process. All right. And we may have lower confidence as to whether or not that'll hit the truck. Just like we might lose that piece of paper before we ever touch the box, we might also not ever get that box to the appropriate carrier area or onto the carrier truck. So you might want to have a validation process where you're scanning those items into the truck and validating in your ERP or your WMS to ensure that those items are actually making it on there. And we don't leave anything on the dock. All right, moving on to end of line. Okay. Again, here, these sound great here because there's so much flexible business rules we can do because we've got that operator input. We can capture that attached scale or something of that nature. And usually because our end of line shipping is done near the dock door or near the area where we're going to collate the packages for pickup, okay, we have a high level of confidence as to when this will actually hit the carrier's truck. Okay. However, this does mean that we have to have highly trained operators. All the packages are probably going to be touched by them unless we're on a conveyor system. We have more touches in the process, and of course, the more time we touch things, that one operator that we have that is less trained than the others might risk more errors, and it might be more time consuming. Okay, and of course, to have a highly trained operator, we have to train them, which means we have a higher level of operator training required. Okay. So now that we've talked about when you can produce shipping documents, let's go ahead and talk about the carrier service selection process, also known as business rules. How are we going to find the right service for a package once we've determined when we're actually going to produce the documents for that package? Okay. So let's go first and let's talk about where we in Neopost Shipping and ProShip, what we think the three basic modes of rate shopping are. First is a basic rate shopping. Now, this is very simple because it only takes into account cost and what we refer to as a carrier service fit. Now, a carrier service fit is basically multiplying your server intelligence, which knows like which carriers deliver to what areas, what their time in transits are, things of that nature, along with a list of services you want to evaluate. Okay. In ProShip specifically, we refer to this as best weight groups. Okay. So we're combining that sortation by cost with the intelligence of the server to select the lowest cost rate of a set of services that you may have asked for. And when we take this a step further and we move to time in transit, we're still taking that service cost and that carrier service fit, but we're looking at the carrier's business time in transit. Okay, in North America, that's usually measured in days. Okay, we can see that delivering across Europe as well. And in some cities and in most of the UK, we can have same day deliveries as well. So that business time in transit may be measured in a matter of hours. Okay. Now this is great as well, but it is the key there is business time in transit. Will we be utilizing business time on a weekend? We will be utilizing business time overnight, so on and so forth. So when we really want to look at this, we're going to take all three of those in advanced date shopping, and we're going to add more. We're going to add things such as what was your customer's day of choice selection or their hour of choice for delivery? Okay, when are we actually creating that label? When we talked about end-of-line shipping, of course, we know when that label is being created, how close it is to actually being on a carrier trailer. Okay, we need to know when those trailer pull times are or when your pickup times are, because if, and we'll see in the next slide, if the trailer's already been pulled for the day, producing a document today will not leave our warehouse today in most cases. Okay, and then we also want to look at things that you can contract with your carriers. And we have seen our customers contract just about everything, but namely, what days of the week they'll be picked up, sometimes what hours they'll be picked up, right? The transit days, so once that package has been turned over to the carrier, when will the carrier actually transit that? And as we see in North America a lot, the carriers are expanding their transit days, are expanding the days at which they will transit, usually in late December near that peak retail season, okay? And of course, delivery days. We're starting to see significantly more Saturday and Sunday delivery options across all the carriers now, but often that is a contract basis in order to get that. So by reflecting all of this information, and you'll notice that as we look at this, we are dramatically increasing the amount of data that we are calculating for each of these levels of rate shopping. Consider each of these to be a business rule or a level of business rule. So you have a simple business rule, a mid-sized business rule, and a complex business rule. But as you can see, as that complexity goes up, the accuracy and the usefulness of that, especially in a higher volume situation, can really draw an ROI. Okay, so let's go and since I think basic rate shopping and time in transit rate shopping are pretty simple, we want to go ahead and really dig in and give you an example of what an advanced date shop could really do. Okay. To start with, we want to kind of think of a calendar, okay? Now, here in this example, we're going to look at the first thing is the day of choice that this customer wants. So they want a delivery on Tuesday the 26th, okay? We also need to know when now is. Now, in this case, is Thursday the 22nd, and it's late in the day, okay? We still have that carrier service intelligence. We still have the service levels that we're going to be looking for. Okay. And in memory of the software itself, we should be creating a nice grid. Okay, now this grid is going to include things such as when we are actually going to produce the label in relationship to the carrier. Okay, so now in this case, if it is late on a Thursday the 21st and UPS, FedEx, and TNT, they haven't picked up yet. They still are going to, in a half an hour or so, they're going to pick up their trailers. They're going to pick up the items we've got on the dock, whatever the case may be. However, for DHL Economy, they pulled earlier in the day. So we know if we actually place a label on a DHL Economy box right now, it will not leave our warehouse until tomorrow, which in this case is Friday the 22nd. And that leads us to the first contract item that we talked about, pickup days, right? So we can see on our in-memory grid here that this is what the pickup days are going to be based off of what we've contracted and the realities of now. Okay, because it is late in the afternoon on a Thursday, the 21st. Okay, we can see next the system is actually going to go ahead and look at the transit days. Now, the system already knows how long it's going to take to get this UPS Express Saver box from our warehouse to the customer. Okay, but the carrier may not transit over the weekend. They may have a carrier holiday on Monday, the 25th. Okay, which means in this case, though it would have got there on time, because of that carrier holiday, it's been pushed out one day too many. Okay, FedEx Express Saver, well, our warehouse manager has negotiated, or our logistics manager has negotiated away a holiday for the carrier, and they will now transit for us on Saturdays, which allows this particular service to get there on time. Okay, these services are a little bit faster in our example here, and over the weekend they'll actually get there. And DHL Economy Select, which only needed 2 business days to transit, would have got there if it wasn't for the fact that we were applying this label so late in the day today, or so late now, okay, that it was unable to make it there. And that's and the final thing that we've got here is the delivery days. So once the package has actually made it to the final sort facility, will the carrier deliver it that day? And that's the last piece of the contract that you might negotiate with your carrier. Once we've gone through all these things, I know that's a lot of data to go through, and this is, however, it's not the most complicated business rule we've seen with our customers, okay? But once you've gone through all of that, basically what you end up with is a list of services that will pass and ones that will fail. And leveraging the exact same logic we would leverage for a basic rate shop, we're able to determine which the lowest cost option is and leverage that for you. All of this can occur behind the scenes. That's the way any good business rule should be. If it does not require operator interaction beyond placing it on the scale and initiating the now piece, well, we should do that in an automated solution for you. Your operators can check the results, they can see the information like this, but generally they should be involved in quality control, volume, things of that nature. All right, so let's kind of tie a few things together. So we've talked about this rate shopping, we've talked about front and end of line shipping. Which versions of rate shopping work best at each end of the shipping process? Okay, so front of line shipping, well, in this case, basic rate shopping and time in transit. Why? Because again, one of the risks of frontline shipping is we don't know when it's going to be passed over to the carrier. So we don't really control the now. We're not sure if we're going to get there after a trailer has been pulled for the day. Okay. End of line shipping, all three are available, but generally we see customers starting to shift towards the higher end, the more complex end, because they have that ability, because they control more of the time, they know more of the now of when things are being shipped. All right, so moving on. One of the last things I really want to talk about is the shipping software itself. And before we talk about features, we really want to talk about where shipping software fits in your enterprise stack. Okay? Now, shipping software is generally paired up with a warehouse management system, where we pull order information, including address and the order line information, and we write back tracking information and costs. Right? Well, that's pretty much the way it was 5-10 years ago. But nowadays, we see a lot more integration with the rest of the enterprise stack. We see ERP solutions being pulled in. We've seen this for a long time for material masters and things of that nature, but now we're seeing a lot more options to write back information, not just shipping costs, which is common, but maybe other information, tracking information along with that, so that customers can be communicated with more efficiently. And of course, if we're going to be communicating with customers, we might want to be looking at OMSs, e-commerce suites, even CRMs, okay? And if we are working with those, now we start to look at the fact that those systems can actually ask questions to the shipping software. So you can say, well, you know what? I know what my lead time in my warehouses are. So if we can assume that, can we get an estimate on shipping costs and for a given delivery date, for a given day of choice, a given hour of choice, such that we can return a set of results to that OMS, to that e-commerce suite, in order to inform our customers, inform our customer service personnel, one way or another, make our customers feel like they have significantly more knowledge over how their process is going to occur for the delivery of your goods. Okay. So this gives you a feel as to some of the areas, and we've seen a lot deeper than this, a lot deeper integration into the enterprise software stack for our customers, but this should give you a good idea as to what we're seeing as a common solution nowadays. Moving on, as we really start to dig down into shipping software, there are really 5 things that we see every customer looking for. Okay, first is speed, and speed is usually about peak, right? And we think about peak and speed, but it's more than that. If a system is capable of actually producing labels, certified labels in a high volume, okay, at your busiest time, then it's not going to be a problem at all. It's not going to be a bottleneck at all during your normal season, during times when maybe there's been some other issue in the warehouse, you need to catch up with your shipping. So speed is one of those things you want to look at. Scalability. Regardless of what you're shipping today, or what your shipping volume is today, I don't know any company that doesn't want to see their shipping volume go up and therefore their revenue go up. Okay, so the ability to take a system and start at a couple dozen packages a day and move all the way up to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even 1 million packages a day is something you might want to look at. What is your expected growth curve? How long will this shipping software last you? What is your investment? What is the end of life for your investment along with your company's growth strategy? Compliance. Being able to produce documents fast and being able to scale from 1 shipment to 1 million shipments is great. But if the shipping software vendor does not have the confidence of the carriers, if they don't have the relationships with the carriers, if they've not worked and certified with any carrier that offers certification, and are building continuous relationships with those carriers, their ability to supply you with basic services and contract services may be limited, and it may frustrate some of your customers. Integration, we just talked about some business rules, our rate shopping business rules to begin with, but generally those are just the tip of the iceberg when we're looking at automating a shipping process and increasing throughput while maximizing the compliance of our business rules. So the ability for a shipping software vendor to integrate into your enterprise software stack, whether they're receiving information, whether they're sending information, whether they're pulling information, whatever the case may be, that integration capability is often directly related to customer satisfaction. And then finally, support. Is your software being supported from in-country? Do you have people that understand your system? Are you going straight to a help desk? Are you actually getting software engineers who know your system, paired up with business personnel that understand your business in order to quickly identify and solve any problems that you might have? So again, just some things that you want to look at as you go forward, and make sure that whoever you select in the future has these items. Okay. All right, so some other areas to consider. When you're getting your shipping software, where are you putting it? Okay, many customers want to have everything in-house, especially the higher volume customers. Why? Because if it's in-house, it's not going to be subject to the whims of the external internet. You're not going to have things slowed down as much. And you're not going to be at the mercy of Amazon Web Services having a problem or the carrier's web services having a problem, things of that nature. So if you can put everything on premise for your larger customers, that often makes them feel they have significantly more control. Now, that being said, a lot of customers are no longer maintaining large data centers with IT staff and things of that nature in-house. They're going out to hosting systems. They're leveraging the fact that Amazon Web Services is out there, Azure is out there, and many other facilities out there will host either their applications or entire enterprise software stacks. So is the product you're looking at, is it capable of doing both? We talked a little bit about that carrier compliance, pre-certified, pre-built certified carrier engines. Are they building these engines specifically for you, or do they have a working relationship with that carrier that goes back so they're capable of handling the esoteric, the odd, and the interesting items, along with being able to handle the basic items at all times? Do they have the ability to do that business logic and implement all of your business rules appropriately? Okay. Can they process efficiently? And this is really where your business rules are about, right? Your business rules are about applying automated processes to ensure you have the compliance you're looking for, to apply your business rules, leverage your unique selling advantage, or ensure that you're actually providing your customer with the service level you promised them within reason. Okay. And of course, the last one, is it flexible enough so that we can show your shipping station operators the appropriate information so they can do, if we are using an end-of-line ship, they can actually do the appropriate audit, do the review, make any changes that might be necessary. So let's give you an example of a customer that has gone through this. Trek Bicycles, okay? Trek is a great company, both in North America and in the UK. They do business in over 100 countries. You'll notice that they routinely exceed 6,000 shipments a day. And when we look at these shipments, the shipment profile, bikes actually are prepackaged. They're already in shippable containers. Okay, these are perfect front-of-line shipping opportunities. Okay, whereas if we're ordering deraillers and brake pads and things of that nature, those are going to be the parts and accessories area. And those are, of course, going to be those piece picks, and they're going to have to be placed in another box. And because of that, they're shipped at end of line. Okay, so, and if we notice, it looks like the accessories department, they get a rush at the end of the day, and they need to be able to quickly execute those. So we can see there's a lot of challenges with them. They want to select the right carrier because they're using a lot of different carriers across the world. They want to, in the past, all of this information, all these decisions had to be made within the employee's brain. So they had to train their employees a lot, and not just on things such as quality control, not just on things such as the packing, the void fill, things of that nature. These operators had to know everything about the carriers themselves, what the carrier holidays were, what the transit times were, things of that nature. And when you start increasing the number of carriers, that becomes very difficult. So what was the solution for them? Okay, they put in a shipping software that was able to select the best rate and look at that service level for the carrier, that server intelligence we talked about before. We automated a large amount of business rules, okay, and they're leveraging basic and time and transit rate shopping. Okay, now they didn't feel that an advanced date shop was exactly what they needed because of the way they've already communicated with their customers. They're already talking in business days in transit to their customers. So a time and transit rate shop is more than capable of meeting and exceeding their customers' expectation. Okay? And in the end, they ended up with a tremendously increased efficiency. That end of day, last couple hour rush that they were seeing with the more than 1,000 new orders coming in, trying to get those delivered or try to get those into the carrier stream same day became a lot easier. Now they can handle several thousand, and they don't have to struggle just to hit 1,000. Okay, and because of that, they saw their volume go up, and they saw the solutions scale without any additional investment required. This allowed them to get the return on investment of less than a year. All right, moving on. So other things that you want to look at. Now, one of the things that a shipping system does is it produces a lot of data. And as we all know nowadays, mining that data, having access to that data is important. Okay, does the shipping software you're looking at, does it have the appropriate dashboards? Does it have reporting for you? And sometimes more important, does it have the capability of moving data into other systems to combine your data collection? Do you have a data lake that you need this information in? Can the system not only feed its own dashboards and reporting components, but can it feed Tableau, Domo, your data warehouse, any other place where you're going to do business intelligence along with everything else? Data really is a huge piece of what we're seeing come into the shipping software world nowadays. So you want to make sure that the shipping software you're choosing leverages that capability, not only internally, but more importantly, externally, such that you can get a bigger picture on your products and your shipping results. All right. And then as we start to get deeper into it, do they have a software development kit? Do you have the ability, when we talked about the ERP communicating to the shipping system, we talked about the OMS or the e-commerce suite communicating to the shipping system. They need an API to allow that information to be requested and a response to go back. Native solutions. And we talked a lot about partnerships with the carriers. We talked a lot about communicating with those carriers, understanding their services. But that's the other side of the enterprise software stack. What about the rest of the software stack? Is the company you're working with, do they have partnerships with the ERPs, with the WMSs? Do they have a good understanding? Have they been in the industry and proven themselves to work with whatever you might be using? Let's say Manhattan, SAP, JDA, so on and so forth. And of course, I know we've talked a lot about having an actual person at the end of line, but do they work with conveyor solutions? Okay, the conveyor solutions can give you a lot of the flexibility, a lot of the advantages of an end of line ship, okay, without actually having to put a body there, okay? So does the shipping software vendor work with Knighted, Knapp, Intelligrated, Dematic, so on and so forth, so that you can have those scan, weigh, print, and apply tunnels for your end of line shipping? Or maybe just a validation tunnel if you're doing front of line shipping and then throwing everything on a scale to have it sorted to the appropriate lane. Okay, all of these things are things that you want to think about going forward. Now, one more case study for customers. PerkinElmer. PerkinElmer does a lot of things, but in this case, one of their medical divisions was looking for a solution because they were shipping reagents, life science reagents, right? And these reagents just happen to frequently be radioactive, okay? And when you're sending radioactive materials, it's not just a dangerous good, but it is a very special class of dangerous good. Now, at the same time, they're also moving over to SAP, so they've got a lot of challenges going on because they've got all of this. They're changing systems at the same time. These radioactive materials have a very defined half-life, okay? And that half-life means that they have to get there in time. Otherwise, their efficiency may go below the minimum viable point, and they will no longer be able to be used for the life-saving tests that they're intended to use, right? So on-time compliance is extremely important, but they have that complexity of extremely detailed paperwork that, unlike paperless commercial invoicing, ETD, or something of that nature, cannot actually be electronically submitted. It must be produced on an archaic, multi-part carbonless form that is attached to multiple sides of the box in order to be compliant to ship a nuclear material across borders. Okay, so how did they solve that problem? Well, they picked a partner a shipping software partner that had good relationships with SAP. Okay, actually such a good relationship they were able to integrate the software directly in SAP. So there wasn't a dedicated shipping station. When that warehouse person was working in SAP, they produced the documents directly there. Shipping station then the shipping software behind the scenes produced the appropriate nuclear material forms, sent the information to the large pin printers that they had for the multi-part carbonless forms, and it all worked seamlessly to the operators, even though they felt they never had to leave SAP in order to do anything. Okay, and what was the results? That integrated software, they were able to, inside SAP, scan the order, the barcode of the item, so they were picking, packing, and of course we want to have a high level of quality control when we're shipping nuclear material. So all that part was being taken care of by SAP. All the appropriate carrier documents were being produced by the back-end shipping software, and they were able to increase their quality control, and of course get those tests to the appropriate facilities on time in order to help with the life sciences that needed them. All right, we're about 40 minutes in here, and hopefully today you've already heard information about when we can create our shipping documents, front of line, end of line. We combine that a little bit with business rules, in this case, very specifically, the various levels of rate shopping. And then finally, in the last 10 minutes or so, we've been talking about the shipping tools themselves and things that you might want to consider as you look for your shipping tools. What features, components, properties, and what you might want to find within the company that you're partnering with to execute your shipping software. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it back over to Amy.
Yes, thank you so much, Justin. Just a great amount of insight here on many areas. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat window. of the webinar session council. And we do encourage you to follow us on social media, and we have some regional handles for Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn that you can see on the screen here, depending on where you're located. And also happy to answer any questions, or if you want any more information on today's session or other things relating to shipping, we are happy to receive those at both of these addresses, again, depending on where you're located. So as people start typing in questions, it does look like a couple have come through, Justin. So if you're ready to start answering, that would be great. The first one that's come in is, how can front-of-line shipping occur with multiple carriers, and how do you keep from mixing up the parcels?
That's a great question. And so in this case, it's all about sorting the prints, right? So usually when you're doing front-of-line picks, when you have a pick plan, things of that nature that are going on, and what we recommend just at the basic level is to split those pick plans by carrier, okay? So you end up doing your UPSs, then your postal, then your DHLs, then your Royal Mails, something of that nature. You can still within each of those have your pick plan. So you go from one end of the warehouse to another. So you're more efficiently within a particular carrier, leveraging the aisle layout you may have within your warehouse. But it's not very hard to say, okay, based upon this factor, namely the carrier, not generally the service level, that would get too detailed. Unless you are talking tens of thousands of packages, then you may want to do your expresses first to make sure they get on the trailer. But usually what we see at the entry level is we split by carrier. And then as we get bigger and bigger, as we get into the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, then we may take that split a little further and do your next days, then your second days, then your grounds or something of that nature.
Great. Another question that's come in is, what happens with a carrier if a shipping label produced in front of line shipping is lost, and will I get billed?
That is an excellent question. Now, if you're leveraging some carriers that bill by manifest, such as UPS, such as the United States Post Office, the answer is yes. And that is why if you are doing front of line shipping, a validation right before it goes into the carrier trailer is so important. Okay. Software like ProShip actually has the ability to produce what's known as a hold manifest. Okay. And that means as we produce the carrier documentation early, it goes on a manifest that will not be transmitted to the carrier. And as that validation scan occurs, as it's going into the trailer, okay, we can move that to a release manifest. So only the items we have proven have gone onto a trailer will actually be shown, will actually be transmitted to the carrier for those carriers that bill that way. Now, there are other carriers like FedEx that they bill on scan, meaning they don't start the billing process until they've scanned the tracking number within one of their facilities for the first time. Okay, so this is really something that you do want to check on a carrier by carrier basis to ensure that you understand how that carrier might charge you. But a good shipping software should be able to handle it, whether whether that carrier does bill off manifest or whether they bill off scan. And that usually means they're capable of either a ship to hold type solution, okay, or something like a ship to lane process. And that ship to lane process means that, let's say we're talking about a really large customer, and you actually have multiple trailers that are being pulled every day from a given carrier. If you are that type of customer and you do want to close out just the trailer at dock door 7, okay, being able to update that tracking number and say, okay, this is now on the Royal Mail manifest for dock door 7, okay, that can be extremely helpful. And again, it can let us know, because we can now look at the end of the day, what is, throughout the day, I should say, what is actually still on the hold manifest? Should that still be on the hold manifest? Is there a document that has slipped under a piece of machinery, that the printer never printed, or something of that nature? So understanding that lost label process, that ship to hold or ship to lane process, can really drive some efficiencies going forward.
Great. Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat window. It looks like we have one more, and that question is, what is the best way to increase the throughput for end-of-line shipping?
Okay, increase the throughput for end-of-line?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things. So I alluded to conveyor solutions, and that really that will physically increase throughput some of the time. But really, what it comes down to is if you do have end-of-line shipping, what is the operator doing? Okay, are they entering data? Can you automate that data? And that's really the key. So in North America here, we've got one of our customers that they actually would run a competition every year during their peak season. Okay, now for them their peak season was Halloween, so it's not the normal peak season that we're used to in December. Theirs was in early October. And as they would do this competition, they would see which of their shipping station operators could produce the most labeled packages within a given day. And for that company with the union breaks and things of that nature, that came out to about 6 hours and 15 minutes of work per day. And the winner would invariably ship about 7,000 packages from their workstation. Right now, that's more than 1,000 packages an hour. So that person was moving. But that meant that everything they needed was automated. Okay, the communication to the scale was automated. So all they had to do was pull the package onto the scale with the roller conveyor, scan the item. Everything that we needed to apply business rules to that package, select the appropriate carrier, was able to be pulled from the host system. Okay, we knew what now was because of when that scan occurred. We were able to select the carrier service based upon the information that we found in the host system. So the operator's job wasn't to add additional information. The operator's job was to handle the package and apply the shipping documentation. So that's really the key to increasing your throughput at end of line, is to automate everything that you can and minimize the amount of operations that end of line shipping operator does. So if the carrier service level, if the communication, if all of that can be automated, the sole purpose of that operator now is to pull the package onto the scale, initiate the weigh event, initiate the data pull event, and apply the carrier documentation that is produced. Anytime the operator has to set down that scanner, go to a keyboard, use a mouse, we're going to see a dramatic decrease in the amount of packages per unit time that operator will be able to execute.
Very good. All right. It looks like that is the end of the questions. And again, thank you to Justin and to our audience today. There will be a short survey as you leave the session, so please feel free to fill that out for us, and then we also will be sending the recording shortly. So with that, have a great rest of your day, and thank you again for participating. Bye-bye.